Welcome to part 2 of our sales plan video series. In the previous video, we discussed the components of a quality sales plan and the differences between a plan and a forecast. In the rest of the series, we'll address the table of contents one item at a time. For review, the TOC we're working with is on your screen now. Since mission and background will be very specific to each business, we'll start with number 2, team or sales organization. But before you can properly define the team, you've also got to consider target market, positioning, marketing strategy, and prospecting strategy, all of which aren't addressed until later in the plan. And all of this has got to be aligned with your business plan. I've discussed sales organization strategies in my blog, but let's take a more in-depth look here. Let's start with inside sales. Regardless of your final structure, this one will always be a constant. You will require at least some inside sales functions to be performed. Additionally, I've been noticing a recent trend where inside sales are being asked and incentivized to be more revenue generators than the typical customer service role. I think this can be beneficial, especially for small companies with limited budgets. But I'll offer 2 words of caution here. Order logistics. This can be time-consuming and is not revenue-generating. For the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to leave OEM and distribution out of the equation, as they're going to be far less common in most small enterprises. Which brings us to outside sales. You basically have 3 options here: direct, manufacturer's rep, or a combination, as they're not mutually exclusive. I'm finding that many business people have very strong feelings towards reps. They either love them or hate them, mostly the latter, with few people holding the middle ground. Am I in love with the rep model? Not really. I just want to ensure that I'm providing the very best solution for any given situation. And when it comes to small manufacturers, quite often that is the rep model. They're especially useful when first entering a new geography or market, as not only is the cost to entry lower, but signing an experienced rep will bring you instant access to a network you likely wouldn't have otherwise had. And you always have the option to go direct later when the business case is there. Small service organizations typically have little choice other than building a referral network. As the business grows, it's common for billable staff to look for new business when they don't have hours to bill. The anatomy of a professional services organization is very different than that of a product provider. Ping me if this interests you, and perhaps we can go into greater detail in the future. Remote staff. Although typically not your first or second outside sales hire, eventually you'll likely have to deal with a remote salesperson. These pose a particular management challenge. Far too often I've seen sales leaders fall into the out of sight, out of mind trap. Remote salespeople are a special breed for sure, but regardless of how much vetting you've done during the hiring process, you've got to make the extra effort to almost over-engage with them. This is especially true during the first year. People on the fringe. Well, we've covered the majority of your sales organization, but not quite everyone. Since you likely won't have a separate marketing department, that needs to be figured in as well. Perhaps a lead inside salesperson or an outsourced solution. And let's not forget about the unsung heroes of all of this, admin. Keep in mind, an outside salesperson's office is essentially their car, and the remote portion of your team doesn't even have the home office as a resource. Admin typically becomes one of their key resources. Well, that's all the time we have for now. Stay tuned for our next video, which will be covering target market. Until next time, this is Rick, your Chicagoland sales strategist, signing off.